My name is Elaine. I'm sitting on my balcony, wrapped in a blanket that smells like rain. The city lights flicker below, steady and uncaring. It's been a while since the storm passed, and now, in this quiet moment, I'm reminded of how it all began. 2 weeks ago, a man in a navy suit handed my father a thick envelope at the airport. My brother, Ryan, stood beside him, pale as a ghost, pretending it wasn't happening. Their perfect world was unraveling, just as they'd unraveled mine. I come from a family with a long, standing business in real estate. My father, Mr. Thompson, is a shrewd and controlling man. He believes that money and status are everything. My mother, Mrs. Thompson, is a woman who values appearances above all. She's always been good at keeping up a facade of a happy family, even when things were falling apart. And Ryan, my younger brother by 3 years, has always been the golden child. He's charming and has a knack for getting what he wants, often at my expense. I remembered that Sunday dinner like it was a nightmare. It was supposed to be a family gathering, but it turned into a battlefield. I'd spent half the afternoon in my tiny apartment kitchen, making a big pot of beef stew, baking fresh bread, and even splurging on a bottle of wine. It was my way of showing that I still cared, that I wanted to be part of the family. When I arrived at their big, fancy house, it smelled like expensive perfume and polished wood. The laughter I heard from the hallway died as soon as I walked in. My father looked up from his newspaper, gave me a cold nod. My mother forced a smile, the kind she reserves for business associates. Ryan was sitting at the table, bragging about his latest real estate deal, which I'd secretly helped him with more than once. I set down the food, the steam rising and fogging the tablecloth. I waited for someone to make room for me, but no one did. Dinner was a chaos of noise and chatter. They talked about an upcoming family vacation, throwing around names of luxury resorts and dates as if I wasn't even there. I sat there, nodding when I was supposed to, my heart pounding. I didn't need an invitation. I just wanted them to acknowledge me. When there was a lull in the conversation, I took a deep breath and said as calmly as I could, "Just tell me when the vacation is. I'll book my ticket early." My words hung in the air. My mother's fork clattered on her plate. Ryan didn't even look up. My father cleared his throat and asked if anyone wanted more wine. I should have been used to their coldness by then, but something about that moment made me feel like I was suffocating. Maybe it was the effort it took me to stay calm, or the way my mother avoided my eyes. I realized then that their so-called family was just a performance, and I was the outsider. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat back, watching them like they were strangers. Ryan was the center of attention, my mother was playing peacemaker, and my father was trying to control the conversation. I told myself to breathe, not to ruin the evening, but I knew that this kind of so-called peace was just an illusion. After what felt like an eternity, Ryan finally looked up at me. He leaned back in his chair, that smug smile on his face. "You're not part of this family," he said loudly. "Don't even think about coming on the vacation." The room went silent for a moment, and then my father burst out laughing. My mother pressed her napkin to her lips, trying not to smile. It was as if they'd been waiting for this moment. I stared at the stew I'd made, the steam still rising. I could feel the heat rising in my neck, not from anger, but from the shame of realizing how easily they'd plotted against me. I didn't say a word. I put down my glass, folded my napkin, and pushed my chair back slowly. Ryan sneered. "Oh, come on, Elaine. Can't you take a joke?" I looked him in the eye and said softly, "You meant it, didn't you?" He didn't deny it, and neither did my parents. I grabbed my coat and headed for the door. My mother's voice followed me. "Elaine, stay. It's just a little joke." I turned to her and said, "No, it's a message, and I got it." The air outside was freezing. Behind me, the laughter started again, muffled by the closed door. I stood on the porch for a long time, breathing in the cold air until my body stopped shaking. Then I walked to my car, the stew still warm in my hands. The next few days were a blur. The first day, I woke up to an empty phone. No calls, no messages, no apology. I tried to convince myself that I was okay with the silence, that this was peace. But I knew it was just a mask. On the second day, I found myself checking my phone every few minutes. I was hoping for a sign for them to realize what they'd done. But there was nothing. By the third night, I left my phone in another room. I told myself I was done caring, but deep down it hurt. On the fourth day, my phone buzzed. It was Ryan. Hey, did your bank block the transfer? The loan payment didn't go through. There was no apology, no mention of the previous Sunday. Just business, straight to the point. I hesitated for a moment, and then I typed, me, not family, not funded. I blocked his number. I expected to feel sad or angry, but instead, a strange calm came over me. It was like the calm before a storm, but this time, I wasn't the one in the eye of the storm. An hour later, my father texted me. I didn't even open it. I just turned my phone over and let it buzz until it stopped. That night, I sat on the floor, surrounded by old bank statements and receipts. I'd lent Ryan so much money over the years, thousands of dollars. I'd always been there to bail him out, and he never even said thank you. I took a yellow highlighter and marked every transaction related to Ryan. Each mark was a reminder of how much I'd given up for this family. When I was done, I stacked the papers neatly and whispered to myself, it's over. The next day, my phone was silent, but I knew they wouldn't let it go. People like them don't know how to survive when they can't use others. Sure enough, in the evening, there was a knock on my door. I ignored it. The knocking got louder, more insistent. Through the peephole, I saw my father's angry face and Ryan pacing back and forth. I held a cup of tea in my hands and stood in the middle of my apartment, my heart steady. They pounded on the door until my picture frames rattled. Finally, the sound faded, replaced by the sound of their car driving away. It was then that I realized silence is a powerful weapon. It shows people who they really are when they can't manipulate you. A few days later, a plain white envelope showed up at my door. It was from my father. Inside, there was $400 in $20 bills. No note, just cash, a cheap attempt to silence me. I stared at it for a long time and then dropped it in the trash. The sound of the bills hitting the plastic was more satisfying than any apology could have been. That afternoon, my mother called. Her voice was full of false concern. Elaine, things got out of hand.
Let's talk about it.
Come over for lunch. I just laughed and hung up. Then an email came from Ryan. It was a so-called repayment plan. He listed some small amounts that he might pay back in a few months. At the bottom, he wrote, "Let's move past this. We're family, right?" I stared at the word family until my vision blurred. Just then, a call came from a law firm. A man told me that my signature was on a $10,000 business loan for Ryan. I was shocked. I'd never signed anything. After some investigation, they found out it was a forgery. I called a lawyer I knew, MS. Davis, and she told me it was identity fraud. She advised me to document everything, and that's what I did. I labeled a folder, The Truth Behind the Lies, and filled it with every piece of evidence I could find. MS. Davis sent a cease and desist letter to Ryan's business. In return, I got an angry email from him, threatening me. I decided to go to my grandmother's cottage, the only place where I felt safe. She opened the door before I even knocked. "It's about time you came," she said. When I told her everything, she just nodded and said, "They'll take advantage of you as long as you let them. Stand up for yourself." 2 weeks later, I got the text from MS. Davis. Enough. They've been served. I didn't feel victorious or guilty. I just felt a sense of relief, like finally turning on the lights in a dark room. The legal mess was sorted out. Ryan's fake loan was voided, and his business accounts were frozen. My father tried to defend him, but all his lies were exposed. MS. Davis handled everything with calm and professionalism. News spread quickly. Ryan's business collapsed, and my father's credit was ruined. My mother started avoiding our neighbors because they no longer believed her stories about our happy family. One night, my mother called again. This time, her voice was soft and full of regret. "I'm sorry, Elaine. For everything. For not protecting you." I listened quietly. When she asked if I'd come to the family vacation, I said, "No, Mom. I can't forgive you from here." She whispered, "I love you, and hung up. Now, as I sit here on my balcony, I look at the envelope of receipts on my table. I know that some truths are better left in the past. I made tea, turned off my phone, and took a deep breath. For the first time in a long time, I feel at peace. I've learned that peace isn't about everyone getting along. It's about walking away and still wishing them well. If you've ever had to draw a line with your family, I hope my story reminds you that silence isn't weakness. It's a form of recovery. Thank you for listening to my story. Let me know where you're listening from, and if you've ever faced a similar situation with your family. Your stories keep this space real. And don't forget to hit subscribe. There's more truth where this came from.